Taipei Ethereum Meetup, and my name is Danger. I'll be talking to you today about DeFi, which is Decentralized Finance. So my background is computer engineering, and for the last few years I've been working as a writer. So I write about technology, I research technology trends, and then I talk about them. So I've seen many different trends like IoT and 5G, blockchain, obviously, and I'm really excited about DeFi because these other technology trends, it's something, it looks really cool, it's going to change the world, but it's in the future. But DeFi is already being built. There's applications today you can use, and it's better than anything else out there. It's something that you can use today, and it's super cool. So I'm going to share that with you today. So I'm going to talk about DeFi, I'm going to talk about these applications, and then my colleague Poming will talk about how to use them safely, because you're going to be putting a lot of money. If you're going to use them, you're probably going to put a significant amount of money into them, and you want to make sure that that money is safe. So he will talk about that. Our company is, the company that we work at is QuantStamp. It's a blockchain security firm. And Poming, he has a PhD, very smart guy. He is a security researcher with our company. So he checks the security of these applications and he does research in that field. And I want to give a thank you to QuantStamp, our sponsor, for the pizza and the drinks, and also MyCoin for sponsoring this awesome venue. Also, can everybody hear me, or? Right, so I'm not going to use the mic. Okay, so why do we need DeFi? Isn't our current options, aren't our current options fine? Like you can go to the bank and do whatever you want. In my opinion, no. If you go to the bank and you put your money in, then you're not going to get much of a return on your balance. You're going to get maybe, usually 0%. In some countries like Japan or Germany, you might get a negative interest rate these days, which is pretty crazy. So you put money into the bank, and you have to pay the bank to put your money there. So like, it's very bad. DeFi rates are much better than that. For some people, like if you're a foreigner in Taiwan, you may have trouble getting a bank account. If you're a cryptocurrency company like MyCoin, you may also have trouble getting a bank account. But with DeFi, as long as you have a cryptocurrency wallet, you can use it. If you're trying to get a loan, that's also quite difficult. So usually, at least in America, and I believe also in Taiwan, to get a loan, you have to get an interview, they have to check your employment status, and it's just a long process, and not everyone can get a loan. But with DeFi, as long as you have some collateral and you have a wallet, then you can get a loan. So in many ways, it's better than the existing options. All right, so what about Bitcoin? Bitcoin is this cryptocurrency. It has a lot of benefits, and it's promised that it's going to free us from the banks. But can it really do that? So Bitcoin is decentralized. Anyone can use it, which is really cool. But it's got a big problem, which is that it's extremely volatile. If I put $10,000 into Bitcoin today, I'm not sure if it's going to be $10,000 in a year, or if it's going to be $20,000 or $5,000. So the volatility is really crazy, and it can be a good speculative asset, kind of like investing in penny stocks, but it's not a good way to really retain long-term savings. So it's a little bit too volatile for that. The other big problem with Bitcoin is that you can't really program it. So with Bitcoin, you can create basic transactions. You can keep your balance in your wallet securely, but you can't really do much beyond that. If you wanted to lend your Bitcoin to someone, you would have to use a third-party application or some kind of exchange. It wouldn't be that straightforward. What about Ethereum? So Ethereum is the world computer. It's extremely programmable. You can do anything with it. It's Turing complete. So that means that any kind of program that you can think of, you can basically build that onto Ethereum, which is very, very cool, very amazing. But anyone who has had Ethereum for a year knows that the price is extremely volatile. So in December of 2017, the price of Ethereum was $1,200. And today it is $185. So the volatility is actually even more extreme than Bitcoin. You don't want to be putting your savings account into Ethereum. It's just way too risky. Enter MakerDAO. So MakerDAO is a project which has created a decentralized stablecoin called DAI. So DAI is really cool because it's fairly trustless. Just like the other stablecoins on the market, like Tether, it's pegged to the US dollar. And it's collateralized by ETH. So instead of using fiat collateral, it just uses crypto collateral. Everything is on the blockchain. And it's also been very successful at being a stablecoin. So even though the collateral is ETH, well, you can see that so these are the same time periods from January of 2018 to today. So ETH, you can see went, from the peak 1,200 to 100. Now it's at 185. DAI, this is the graph, and it's pretty much been tracking this line the whole time, and the standard deviation is actually quite low. I think this is technically a little bit lower than Tether actually. So it's gone as high as like 104, and then like the lowest is like 96 cents. So it's not too bad. So it's a very successful stablecoin. All right, so why do we need DAI though? Can't we just use Tether? We have this stablecoin that's been around for so many years. It's been around since 2016. The volume is enormous. Lots of people are using it. All the exchanges are using it. So why don't we just use Tether? Well, the problem with Tether is that the company that owns Tether is Bitfinex. And if you've been paying attention to the news, Bitfinex is under investigation by the New York Attorney General. So if you use Tether, the money you're using is controlled by a company which is under criminal investigation. That's pretty bad. So this year, Bitfinex had $750 million frozen. This was the money that was backing their Tether. So they had to raise a new token sale. In an IEO, they raised $1 billion. But still, it's very hard to tell whether there really is that money that they claim there is backing up Tether. But on the other hand, with DAI, it's decentralized. There's no company that owns Tether. There's no company that owns DAI. So there's no centralized entity that can really fail. And DAI uses crypto collateral. There's no bank accounts that you have to worry about. There's no bank accounts which can be frozen. You can't freeze a crypto wallet. Also, the collateral is 150%. So with Tether, they've already admitted that they don't completely collateralize all the every single Tether. But for DAI, you can be sure that it's 100% collateralized. Everything for DAI, all the transactions, all the collateral, everything is on the blockchain. You don't have to trust DAI. You don't have to trust MakerDAO. You can actually go onto the blockchain. You can check that everything works like they say it works. So it's really good. It's a stablecoin that fulfills all the values of cryptocurrency. Okay, so now we have a stable unit of account. We can save our money into crypto, but we're not getting any interest. And we want to stack that dough, right? So compound finance lets us do that. Compound finance is it's kind of like a very high interest savings account, but the financial term is a money market. So a money market in finance is a very short-term debt market. Companies can buy or sell debt on there, and the interest is paid every single day. Compound does that, but it does it in a decentralized way. Don't worry if you don't understand all those terms. I'll explain it in a second. The design of Compound is that, just like the other dApps we talked about, it's decentralized. There are developers working on it, but it's not technically owned by anyone. It's non-custodial, so it's not like you're depositing your money onto an exchange or with a company. You're actually transferring money into a smart contract, which is a kind of a blockchain program. And actually that program ends up sending you a type of certificate that lets you redeem those things later. So in a way, the money never leaves your wallet. It's fairly safe and trustless. Compound has an interesting design where it uses liquidity pools. So basically, Compound is a type of lending platform. But usually, like if I make a loan to Poming, I might say, oh, I'm going to lend you $1,000 US, and you got to pay me back by next month, and I'm going to charge you 10% interest. But Compound, so that's okay. But the problem is it's really complicated. Like you got to have a huge discussion about this. You got to, it's kind of messy. Compound makes it much better because it uses liquidity pools. So let's say that I want to lend $1,000 into Compound. I don't have to track someone down who also needs $1,000 and negotiate terms. I just dump $1,000 onto Compound, and it automatically starts generating interest because the money goes into a liquidity pool. So anyone who wants, say, Ethereum, just pulls money from that pool, and then they can use that for the loan. The other design aspect of Compound is because the loans are all pulled together into this like fungible resource. So you can withdraw at any time. If I made a loan to Poming for 1 month, then I can only get that money back after 1 month. But because of the liquidity pool aspect, I can actually withdraw my money from Compound at any time. So that's actually a really amazing design. This is pretty revolutionary, I would say. 哦，对了，这个有没有什么问题？虽然我中文不是那么好，但是如果有什么不理解，我还是可以试着回答。
我可以翻译，如果有需要的话。
Alright, so let's compare Compound to using a bank. So there are bank accounts now where you can sort of generate some kind of interest. Usually it's very low, but some banks now offer maybe 2% interest or 2.5% interest. You can also do something called a CD, where you lock up your money for a few months and then you get like a pretty decent interest rate of 2.5%. Well, if you open up one of these savings accounts, one of these high interest savings accounts, usually there's some requirements. You got to fill out a lot of paperwork. There's maybe a minimum balance, so not everyone can get these accounts. And even if you do, you can't do everything that you want with it. If you do go to the bank, also you usually can't just lend out money willy-nilly. Like you can't just borrow. You can't just walk into Chevy Chase or whatever bank you use and say, "Oh, give me $100." It doesn't work like that. But you can on Compound. And also, you can't just. Usually, for many of these accounts, there's some kind of limit on the withdrawals you can do. So maybe you can only withdraw 5 times a month, or you have to stay above a certain minimum balance. So there's a lot of requirements here on the restrictions on the savings accounts with banks, which don't apply to Compound.
May I ask how much is the interest rate of Compound?
So I'll show you in a second, but for some coins, it can be as high as anywhere from 10% to 15%. So it's because right now banks are loaning. If you put the money into a bank, the best you can get, from my understanding, is somewhere around 2.5%. So that's like 5 times better. It's a lot better. Okay, so all right, Compound is a lending platform, but we already have had lending platforms for a while. The most famous is Bitfinex. It's a very popular exchange. So why don't we just use Bitfinex to do our loans? As we said before, Bitfinex is a centralized company. It's under criminal investigation. So that's already a very good reason not to use them. You also need to have a verified account with Bitfinex to do many of the loans. So you have to do a very long and lengthy KYC process. From what I understand, Even if you send it in today, it may take a few months for you to get verified. Also, when you get a loan on Bitfinex, you can only use those funds on Bitfinex to do some trading. But if you get a loan on Compound, say I borrow 1,000 DAI, then I can withdraw that DAI from Compound, and then I can do anything I want with it. I can do trading, but I can also pay my employees. I can buy the new iPhone XS or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. There's no restrictions on what I can do with that, as long as I pay the money back later. So it's much more free. You have many more options with it. Oh, I would say another huge benefit is that on Bitfinex, I don't know, has anyone used Bitfinex for lending here? No? Oh yes. Okay. So you guys know, like, it seems, on the surface it seems really cool. Oh, I can get like 15% or 20% on Bitfinex. But you have to negotiate the loan every single time. So you log on to Bitfinex, and there's this complex screen, and then you have to say, oh, I want to lend money. I want to lend USDT for 15% for 2 days. And then you hope that someone will accept that order. If not, you have to keep on adjusting the order. And then even if you get that order, after 2 days, when the loan expires, you have to renew that order, and maybe you have to change it again. So basically, if you want to lend on Bitfinex, it's a pain in the ass. You got to keep on renewing. There's a lot of manual work involved. But on Compound, you don't. Because of the liquidity pool design, you dump that money into Compound, you set it, and you forget it. Like it's super dirt simple. It's super nice. You just don't have to worry about it. And finally, as I said before, you can withdraw your money from Compound at any time. You don't have to worry about loan terms. Bitfinex, if you loan your money out for 2 days or 30 days, it's locked up until that loan is expired. So it's, in every single way, it's better than loaning on Bitfinex.
Another question?
Yeah.
Is there any cons or risk, extra risk compared to the defense?
So that's a good question. I would say that the risks are different. I can't quite quantify it because it's the design of, it's such a different situation. So here, with Compound, you're putting your money into a smart contract, which is a program on the blockchain. And Poming will talk about this more. This is a very important aspect because this is the security of your money. So it's, so here you're trusting a program. With Compound, they have audited the program. So that means that professionals have checked the program and they said it's okay. It's still possible there are issues with it. But it has been audited. And from my understanding, the design of Compound, from what I understand, is quite good. So it minimizes the trust that you have to give to that program. So in many ways, it's for what it is, I would say it's probably the safest design possible. Bitfinex, you could argue that it's either fairly safe or very dangerous. For me, the biggest risk with Bitfinex is that the company is under investigation. So that has a threat to both their exchange and also USDT. So there's a bunch of things that could happen. Bitfinex could get hacked, Bitfinex could get shut down, or USDT could be, the bank accounts could be seized again. And that means that the value of USDT would drop, and then even though you have these loans going on, the value of your loans would depreciate rapidly. So for me, I like Compound. But some people would also argue that since Bitfinex is a centralized company, if for some reason there's a problem with your loan or there's a hack, they can compensate you. But with Compound, it's a very safe design and has been checked. But if something goes wrong, you don't have any recourse. There's no third party they can go to, and you can't cry to mommy and ask her to save you. There's no one that's going to save you in this situation. So there's kind of trade-offs. For me, I choose Compound, but there are arguments that a centralized entity in some ways is better. Okay.
Sir?
Yeah.
If I get a loan from the Compound, and how much interest rate will it be?
Okay, so let's look at that right now. So Compound uses money markets, and as I said, there's liquidity pools. For every single coin here, you can see the market, and so for Ether right now, the resolution is not very high, but the supply APR is 0.01%. So if you lend Ether, you don't get very much money back. You get 0.01%. But if you want to borrow Ether, it's very cheap. It's only 2% right now, 2.17%. This is the borrow APR. If you want to make some money, then you would choose DAI, because DAI has the highest supply APR. APR right now is 11.2%. That's really good. But if you want to borrow DAI, it's a little bit expensive. It's 16.4%. That's the highest borrow rate. So as I said, there's liquidity pools. So each of these is a liquidity pool, and that's how Compound works. You can see also how much money is in there right now. Right now, there's 84 million Ether, $36 million of DAI, and so on. So I've been talking about the benefits of lending on Compound, but you can actually use it for borrowing, and in some ways it's actually a pretty good platform for that as well, because the interest rates are not always that high. However, if you do borrow, it's not uncollateralized. You do have to collateralize the loan. So you have to do bear in mind that you have to put in, it's usually over collateralized. So something like under 50%. So you would, let's say I want to borrow some DAI, usually I would put in then you can put in any of these other coins to collateralize that loan, and then you can withdraw some DAI. Harrison, yeah.
Yeah, so my question was also about the risk. So if I'm borrowing, let's say I'm borrowing on Compound, and I put in some collateral, what's stopping me from just borrowing a ton and not repaying?
Well, you lose your collateral.
I lose my collateral, but don't I get to borrow more than I collateralize?
No, you have to be over collateralized. So you have to collateralize at least as much, and I think it's usually more. So you really don't want to run away with the loan, because you're going to be screwing yourself.
So if it's over collateralized, why would I be borrowing?
It's if the interest rate is reasonable enough for you, then you could basically, it's a collateralized loan. So just like any other collateralized loan, as I said to you before, so I think the most basic example the clearest example I can think of is if I'm a business and I'm getting paid in 1 month, I'm getting like a huge invoice in a month, but I need to pay my rent or I need to pay my employees right now, then I might, and I'm a crypto company, I got a bunch of Ether lying around, then I'm going to lock up like a bunch of Ether, I'm going to pull out some DAI, pay all my employees, pay my rent, and then in a month I have this guaranteed chunk of money coming in. I use that to pay off my DAI, which is at 16%. 16% is high for a year, but for a month it's not so bad. So that would be one use case for a collateralized loan. Another use case would be gambling. You could use it for leverage trading, basically. And also for Americans or people who are concerned about capital gains, when you take out a loan, you're technically not selling your crypto. So there are times when that might be a good reason to use a collateralized loan.
And is Compound all anonymous?
You basically just need a wallet. You don't have to register anything, so in a way, yes. Okay, the last DeFi app I want to talk about is called Uniswap. Uniswap is a decentralized token swap exchange. You can think of it as a very basic exchange, but it's designed in a quite decentralized manner. I wouldn't say it's revolutionary because there's other decentralized exchanges out there like IDEX or Fork Delta, but it's just more decentralized. You don't have to buy a special token to use it. It's very nice to use. It's very fast, and it's designed to be to minimize trust, just like the other applications. Like you're putting very minimal trust into Uniswap. Actually, the money pretty much stays in your wallet the whole time. So with Uniswap, you have some money in your wallet, you send it to Uniswap, and it comes back as another token. Yeah, so it's basically a decentralized exchange. Alright, so let's, done a lot of talking. Let's do an actual example of these applications. Hopefully the price of Ether is not too. So I have my MetaMask. Got 1 ETH in there. I'm gonna go to. So right now I have pretty much one Ether, $186 pretty much. And what I want to do right now is I want to save this money into Compound and start earning some interest, stacking some DAI. So how am I going to do that? First, I need to change this Ether into DAI. So, like for instance, Ether is relatively easy to get. You can buy it here in MyCoin or wherever. DAI is a little bit harder to get, so you would usually buy Ether and then you would change it into DAI. So let's do 0.5 ETH. And I'm going to change that into DAI. So this is the Uniswap interface. You can see it's quite simple. You just choose the token you're swapping from, and then the token you're changing to. It's very similar to Shapeshift, if you used that before. But it's unlike Shapeshift, it's anonymous. Yeah, so let's do this. Let's hope this works. So this has popped up a MetaMask transaction. I'm going to pay this much gas. That's right. Run the transaction. And then this, you can see this transaction is here. And I'm just going to pray that I have the right gas price for this. If you're worried about gas price, you can go to the gas station. Check it. Oh, there we go. Looks like it's been confirmed. So let's check my wallet. Now I have pretty much 0.5 ETH. And I have 90 DAI. So that took like 10 seconds, and I transferred Ether into DAI. And I didn't have to register on the exchange. I didn't have to deposit anything. This is like the future of exchanges. All right. So now I have some DAI, and I want to use it. I want to start saving some money with it. Start earning some money with it. I'm going to go to Compound. I'm going to go to the app. So I can mark this right now. And I have DAI, so I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to start, I want to supply it. So supply is the word for, lending out this thing. It looks like I'm going to earn 11%. It's really good. I'm going to do that. So let's start supplying some DAI. I'm going to supply the max DAI I can, $91. So another MetaMask transaction. Looks about right. Confirm that. Right now you can see this is the transaction indicator. You can see it's still transacting.